I would like to welcome you very warmly to the second part of our session. My name is Anna Repczyński, and I'm the coordinator of the Polish program Safer Internet. I work for the Gdańsk Computer Network, and I have the great pleasure of moderating this session. I'm very happy to have such a distinguished group of panelists. This will be a very interesting session, I think, because there will be many presentations on many different issues, touching on technological issues, blocking content at the operators level, also issues related to junior high school students, etc. The first speaker is Dr. Zoe Hilton from the UK, who's a renowned activist in protecting children against also internet threats. She is a member of the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children and the Children's Charities Coalition on Internet Safety. She also is active as part of the INAXO network. She also teaches social policy at and in her presentation at Heriot Watt University, and she will be talking about something very important, i.e. blocking internet content, something which is very controversial, but something which is very much needed, something that also Jakub Boratyjski referred to in his presentation.
Hello, good morning. As you've heard, I'm here from the NSPCC. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. And I'm here to talk about the issue of blocking of child abuse images. And really, I'm here to say why it is we think that is so important and is very much a necessary protection for children. First of all, a bit about my organisation. You've heard that the NSPCC stands for the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. And we do a range of direct work with children. We run a range of projects. We run the major national helplines. But we also lobby to change the law, as well as policy, practice, public attitudes and behaviours. The NSPCC turned 125 years old this year, as we were founded in 1884. So it's a proud year for us. And there's not many charities that can say that they're that old. In relation to sexual abuse, our programme of work is very comprehensive. We run services providing a therapeutic response to children who have been sexually abused, services for children who are themselves exhibiting sexually harmful behaviour, sexual aggression. We run services for children who have been commercially sexually exploited, including children who have been trafficked. We have staff also working with the adult perpetrators of sexual abuse, and we also have expert staff working on internet abuse. As we see it, the internet and the new technologies are not a separate technological issue that can be separated off. It's one mechanism that's used to facilitate the wider sexual abuse of children. And it's something that can no longer, in the view of the NSPCC, be tackled by member states within their own borders. It requires a concerted international response. So I don't want to repeat what John has already said about the INAXO network, but I'm also here representing INAXO, the European NGO Alliance for Child Safety Online. And we are 15 organisations. We have Agnieszka from Nobody's Children Foundation, and we're also represented by Innocence in Danger in Germany. Our purpose is to work together to do international advocacy, to ensure that children's rights and child protection are on the agenda around all the discussions that go on at the EU and international level. That's just some of the logos down the side, not all 15 of them. In today's presentation, what I'm going to do is provide some context about child abuse images and materials and what we know about the commercial exchange. I'm going to explain a bit about what we mean by blocking. If you are sitting in the audience and you are the internationally renowned world expert on blocking and the technical aspects of blocking, then please bear with me. This may not be for you. This is an introduction in what blocking is, what we mean by blocking, and why we see it as essential to the fight against child abuse content. I want to unpick some of the current debates and place them in their political context, and then I'm going to touch on other key issues that we need to address that go beyond blocking in the fight against child abuse content on the internet. And finally, I want to look at some of the work, just touch on some of the work that the NSPCC has done in the UK and internationally in Europe as ENACSO around advocacy, just illustrating really some of what John was saying earlier. So, first of all, child abuse images are visual representations of a child being sexually abused. The abuse usually takes place in the offline world, but the internet facilitates the mass distribution of images, often for profit, which in turn creates an incentive for abusers to harm more children to create new images for sale. So it's a vicious cycle. Child abuse images on the internet have massively increased in prevalence over the last 10 years, and the internet has enabled a shift from amateur, small-scale, non-profit production of images to the distribution of images by organised crime in order to benefit financially. It's important to acknowledge that there remains a very significant non-monetary trade in child abuse images, a non-monetary online trade, often between highly organised groups of collectors, but images which may initially have been produced for the commercial market can sometimes quickly find their way into that non-monetary environment. So there's exchange between the two networks. But just to be clear about what I'm talking about today, because sometimes it does all get muddled together. Different methods of distribution require different responses from the authorities. So exchange of images for free tends to be done via peer-to-peer technology, which don't pass via websites and need an alternative response. It's very important, but it's not what I'm talking about today when I talk about blocking. Commercially, images are often sold through websites on a pay-per-view basis. This is a bit simplistic. This isn't always the case. There are websites that are non-commercial, but blocking tends to tackle that commercial distribution, and that's what I want to speak about today, and to put the approach and the role of blocking in context. In terms of the value of the illegal trade, it's very difficult to determine the value of what's an illegal business. A whole range of different estimates have been made of the potential value of the market. But it's widely believed that the business is worth many millions of dollars. It's certainly sufficient to attract the interests of organised crime. Equally, we're aware that there are millions of images in circulation, and these, remember, there's lots and lots of duplicates, so these, it's believed, feature at least tens of thousands of different individual children that are depicted in those images. It's also the case that there's evidence that child abuse images are becoming increasingly disturbing and severe in content. These are figures in the UK, figures from the 2008 Internet Watch Foundation, which is the UK industry body that runs the blocking list. And they found that in 2008, 69% of images show children under 10 years old, and 24% of images show children under 6 years old. Worryingly, they find that 58% of their domains assessed contained images at levels 4 and 5. So these are the most serious, the most severe kind of images, level 4 being penetrative sexual activity with a child, and level 5 including sadism. I want to say something. I'm here from an NGO that, as I've said, does a lot of therapeutic work with children who've been sexually abused. And I want to say something about the kind of damage that sexual abuse causes children. It's not easy to capture. You can list the health consequences of sexual abuse, but it's hard to describe really how devastating it can be. Anxiety, depression, anger, guilt, poor self-image, difficulties functioning, sexual and physical problems, vulnerability to post-traumatic stress disorder, as well as a range of psychiatric conditions. It's important to say that this isn't the fate of every abused child, and not in our experience. Children can be extraordinarily resilient, but these are the links that research consistently shows. In relation to children abused in images, there are, in addition to the traumatic effects of the sexual abuse, some specific therapeutic needs which are especially difficult to resolve. So it adds a burden to therapeutic work. These include the impotence felt by the child because of their lack of control over the disclosure process. So because someone, their counsellor, their therapist, if they're lucky enough to get a therapeutic response, has already seen the image, they know what's happened. So it's not them that is able to tell the story in their own way. And that can be very difficult. The other obvious feature of abuse in images is the non-resolution of the abuse. So the fact that the child lives with the knowledge that the image of their abuse can be looked at again and again, and it's not going to be destroyed, and it can be viewed by many thousands of people. Sorry, to flick back. So what is blocking and how does it work? Blocking is a means of disrupting child abuse images. It involves internet service providers using technologies to block sites or URLs known to contain child abuse images. This means that anyone accessing the internet through that ISP cannot view the sites containing the child abuse images, whichever country those sites are based in. Where they exist, blocking mechanisms function on a national basis, and they differ from country to country. In the UK, the ISPs use a list generated by the Internet Watch Foundation, which is an industry body, and they block all the sites on the list, and they also get reports from the public hotline they run, and that's an Internet Watch Foundation poster on the right, which is about attracting the attention of the public so they know where to report to. This model works pretty effectively in the UK for the majority of ISPs, but in other European countries, law enforcement deals directly with ISPs to ensure that blocking technology is used. So, for example, in Italy, the Centre Against Child Pornography on the Internet maintain a list of sites, a police centre, maintain a list of sites to be blocked, which is shared with the ISP that use it to block sites newly added to the list. As ENACSO or as NSPCC, we're not advocating a one-size-fits-all approach to blocking. It doesn't all need to be the same. What's important to us is that blocking technology is used. So these are key arguments for blocking technology being used. It's a disruption of the trade. I think it's important to be clear that blocking technology is not a substantial obstacle for someone who's determined to access this material. They can log onto an overseas server, and many hardened users will be accessing images via peer-to-peer networks. At the same time, blocking has a really crucial role to play, both in preventing the domestic consumer stumbling across the material, which is upsetting, but also in preventing those who don't know how to access the material, but who are curious and developing their sexual interest in children from getting hold of it. And when we think about sexual abuse and the prevalence of sexual abuse in our societies and really the prevalence actually of sexual interest in children, it's important to understand that we have a spectrum of abusers and different levels of sexual interest. And people may be at different stages in a pathway that will ultimately lead to offending against children. So in contrast to stereotype, and actually in contrast to some of the hardened offenders that we know about and that Dr. Davidson was talking about earlier, not all potential perpetrators have reached that stage yet. So we know in our work with perpetrators and our experience of working with offenders that actually some are not, they're just not there yet in terms of their entrenched offending behaviour, and they're not necessarily that technically literate either or that skilled. So any aspect that makes access slightly harder is of value. It's a basic rule of crime prevention, I think. There's growing consensus that the implementation of blocking helps to undermine the whole commercial trade of child abuse images and actively disrupt its success. So the more countries that use blocking mechanisms, the less successful and active a multi-million-dollar market becomes because it's not getting through to potential customers. And finally, on that slide, as I spoke about before, the fewer people that look at the images, it helps to prevent the re-victimization of children who've been the victims of abuse. So why is blocking justified? Well, that for us there's a lack of any reasonable technical argument against blocking. For many years we heard about how blocking technologies would disrupt or wreck internet service, and actually the fact that many ISPs and mobile phone companies are already blocking child abuse images without any detriment to their service or their internet speed is for us enough proof that there's no reasonable technical argument against implementing such a policy. Again, cost can't be seen as a relevant factor. For many years in the UK, the smaller ISPs have said, well, it's just not commercially viable for us to use a blocking mechanism. And our answer to that is, well, this isn't an additional extra. This should be part of the general costs to your business of doing business. And if you can't afford to block child abuse images, you shouldn't maybe be running an ISP. The final point is that blocking becomes justified because it's proportionate and it's transparent, and when it's transparent to the public and it's supported by the public. And I want that's so important that you take the public with you on what you're blocking. And I want to come back to that point in a minute. But I just want to acknowledge again the limits of blocking and the things that we still need to tackle. Blocking obviously doesn't prevent peer-to-peer file sharing of child abuse images, which is increasing and is very worrying. Removing, and I want to talk about notice and takedown as well. Removing child abuse images from the internet completely is obviously even more desirable than just some people in some countries not being able to see them. So this process of notice and takedown, when the ISPs which hosts a child abuse image site is put on notice and takes the site down, has proved very effective and is generally workable across the EU. For example, certainly many sites now, if any, are now hosted in the UK. But the problem is that the authorities in one country obviously have no say over whether sites in another country stay up or whether they're taken down or not. And sadly, we know that many countries don't act rapidly to take sites down. So recent research by Cambridge University found that child abuse content, sites hosting child abuse content often stay up very long and far longer than commercial or phishing sites, for example. So despite important work undertaken by the InHope network, removing child abuse images is often, in other countries, is often slow. This is to do with a lack of police resources. The recent ICMEC report, the International Centre for Missing and Exploited Children, showed that there are a variety of different legal frameworks which also cause a problem, and there can be, in different countries, a lower political priority given to this. So until notice and takedown is 100% effective and is working, blocking also needs to be used as one of the tools. It's an important point because blocking is often attacked for what it doesn't achieve rather than what it does do. And no one should claim that blocking does everything, but actually it is an important part alongside these other things, and it's one part of the picture. I also want to acknowledge the crucial role of police and social care resources in identifying and protecting victims. Very few children, proportionally to the tens of thousands, have ever been identified. Only about 1,500, I believe. So, coming back to the point about transparency, I think it's important that I've mentioned support of transparency and public support. And the fact that blocking can be used for undesirable ends and oppressive purposes doesn't mean that it shouldn't be used for child protection and for stopping the distribution of child abuse material which actively violates children's rights and children's rights to protection. So it's important that it's not a smokescreen, but I think there is a role for, if you have transparency and public confidence, understanding about the processes of blocking, independent review of government systems and processes, there's not really a valid argument against blocking, and it is an area where you can take the public whose support you need when you advocate for blocking. You can take them with you on this. They can accept and help you defend blocking. And I think this is an area where we've had to win the debate in the UK. There's not been complete support for blocking throughout the UK media, and it's taken time and work and public education to think about the nature of child abuse images. So some of the UK media are guilty, I think, of entangling all the issues relating to ISP blocking in particular. So all filtering is bad, and you may be familiar with maps of this kind, which show different levels of filtering, but all of it is presented as a bad thing. But actually, it's important to make the distinction between political freedom and children's right to protection, and to disentangle the two things. And this is content that actually harms children. And I think if you explain that, you do get some way and build support for blocking. And that's what we've done in the UK. So that brings me on to some of the advocacy work that we've done in the UK. We now have 98.5% of UK-based ISPs blocking access to child abuse images, with only a small number continuing to resist it. Pressure from government, but crucially, as John Carr was talking about earlier, the coalition of children's charities, the CHIS coalition of children's charities, were really key in this, using the media coverage and shock generated from high-profile cases. One of the issues that we're aware of at the NSPCC is that this is a problem that lies very hidden from civil society. For children who are abused in images, no one knows who they are or what their names are, and so it's kind of out of sight for people, and they need advocates. So that's really what we did, and tried to sort of bring it home to the public consciousness what it meant. This was our campaign poster, and what we did at the NSPCC is, because we have many thousands of supporters and donors, we managed to get 15,000 of our supporters to write to their MP to demand change in relation to ISP blocking of child abuse images. And it really had quite a significant impact in raising the consciousness of the issue, and also through the broader platform of CHIS, building a real sort of parliamentary awareness around blocking, and really put pressure on industry, actually. So, as John has already kind of explained, I want to talk a bit about the value of advocacy work, but this has been recognised by the EU, who, as my earlier slide showed, have agreed funding for the ENACSO network, the European network of NGOs that promote children's rights. I want to say that we hope to promote our approach to advocacy through ENACSO, and we lobbied for and very much welcomed Article 18 on blocking access to websites containing child pornography of the European Commission's March 2009 draft Council Framework Decision. What we've done as ENACSO is to get members to write to their national ISPs to ask them what they're doing in terms of implementing blocking solutions. And we've also supported ENACSO members to engage with their national governments on the issue of blocking. We also want to sort of promote, promote understanding more widely. I hope you'll forgive John and I for relentlessly plugging the things we write, but we have also produced an ENACSO position paper which outlines where all 15 NGOs stand on some of the key issues around sexual abuse and exploitation in the online environment, and it covers issues relating to blocking. So it is on the ENACSO website, but if you're interested, please do speak to me afterwards and I can give you a copy. So I'm just being hurried, but I think it's important, it's noticeable that there's a momentum currently in favour of blocking, building on currently a number of effective voluntary agreements. I've spoken about the UK, France, Belgium, I believe, but we also want action from industry to adopt clear and transparent blocking solutions, to say what they're blocking and be clear that they're blocking child abuse images. So final slide. Some concluding points from all this. I think it's important that harm relating to child abuse images must be understood and not minimised. This is a really key public education point. It's about the language that we use. It's about how we talk about the kinds of materials, and it's about making people understand it. I think the purposes and nature of blocking should be transparent and have public confidence. I don't think we have anything to worry about in terms of public support for blocking, so long as they are confident about what it is and that there's a process for challenge and review. I think it's fine. And we've certainly experienced a huge amount of public support for what we've been arguing for. I think it's important to be clear that blocking is only one of the tools. It won't do everything. It's just one of the things that we need to do in a really wide and complex fight against child abuse content on the internet. So I'm not standing up here and saying, hey, I've got a simplistic solution, and I think it's really important that we acknowledge all the complexities. But I think ultimately we also have to understand that if we undermine the trade in images, it's less interesting to organised crime, and if it's less interesting to organised crime, then fewer children will be abused to produce images. Okay, thank you very much.
Bardzo dziękujemy za tą ciekawą